Good evening, one and all. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm not Jay. I've got McMurray with me.
What's up?
And tonight, we're talking about why we like what we like. I'm going to be perfectly honest. The reason I picked this topic is so we can hear what goes through McMurray's brain when he decides to go after a time period or a subject matter or a genre, especially Lake Tanganyika in 1914 to 1918. I've gotta know what's been piling through that brain, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. We'll let you get in position so you can have proper microphone and speaker and all that other garbage.
Oh, absolutely.
But I wanted to go ahead and shout out real quick to all the folks out there. Looks like we got about 4 watching right now. We got Paul. He says he's in the hospital again. He said he woke up at 2 a.m. on Tuesday morning vomiting blood. I'm having a rough time at the moment.
Fuck, Paul.
Dude, if it's not offensive to you in any way, shape, or form, my prayers are with you, brother. I mean, you got to take care of yourself. And I know you're going through what you're going through, but, please, please, please get better. I say this in the most manly way possible. We all love you.
Accurate.
All right? So take care of yourself, buddy. Chuck's here, evening to all. Paul, our prayers are with you. See, there you go. Chuck's praying for you also. We got you, brother. We got your back. John Longshore's in the house. So sorry to hear. Yep.
John, Charles, Paul, and it looks like the Baron has joined us.
Yes, he has.
Woo!
Paul, John says, "Oh, I thought you were just singing Casey and the Sunshine Band." That's the way I like it. All right, the Baron, Wiley Games, because it's dope. Yeah, Lake Tanganyika is dope. I would say. So sorry, Paul Beckers, don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Lake Tanganyika. Thanks, guys. I'm soldiering on. Please do, sir. Please do. I hate to be the Facebook thoughts and prayers, T's and P's, but you're a good guy. We want you around for a lot longer. So,
Paul, can you drink a beer on your cancer meds, Paul?
Because if you can, you need to crack one and well, not if he's vomiting blood. Let's get that shit sorted first.
Then we'll worry about beer.
Then we'll worry about having a beer. So, but everybody who has ever watched any of my shows that I've been on, either this one or no alcohol.
Oh, right.
That's rough. All right. No worries. Have a Dr. Pepper. Anyway, everybody who has ever watched any of my shows, whether it's this show here or my nonsense, Chronicles of Not Jay show that has no real topic, or any of the multitude and many shows I've had over with Rocky in the War Room, knows that this right here is first and foremost in any of my gaming. Why? I've explained it many times before, but I'm just, being filler right now until McMurray gets himself settled.
It's the slave Leia costume.
Yes. Actually, no, that just reinforced it. Because that didn't happen until 1983, which was just about the perfect time.
And how old were you in 1983?
13.
Yeah, it's the slave Leia costume.
Yeah. But even before that, I loved Star Wars. 1977 was a watershed year for me. two big things happened that year that ultimately would change my life forever. Star Wars came out May 25th, 7 days before my birthday. 7 days? 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 1. Yeah, 7 days before my birthday. 2, the Apple II was released, which made Apple strong enough to be able to come out with the Macintosh. And in 1998, I became an Apple certified technician.
Jesus.
And, you know, that's
Put
what
your
got me
boner
where I
away.
am today. What's that?
Put your boner away.
So 1977 was a huge, huge year ultimately for me. But Star Wars, I just, everything about Star Wars, the original series, I love. I will still watch it to this day. I've watched the movie Star Wars more times than any other movie I have ever watched. And will always be watched more than any other movie I watch, because I watch Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi religiously at least twice a year. At least twice a year. And since, obviously, I saw Star Wars first and saw it more often than the others, because my grandmother had it on a 12-inch laser disc for her laser disc player. Don't know why she had a laser disc player. She did, and she had Star Wars. So there you go. Let's see. Some other comments here. John says, any German general that can tell the Fuhrer to eat lead and die is top of the line in my book. There you go. I thought you hated Legion. I'm not going to say I hate Legion. I can't say I hate Legion. I've never played Legion. I know exactly zero about Legion, other than, well, they're really cool models.
Before we started, immediately before we started, we were actually just addressing how Chris has no idea what the little cards and Legion crap in the boxes mean. I've only bought 2 boxes of Legion stuff. Can say the same thing. No idea.
Yeah. This stuff here, no damn clue what it does. Not the foggiest. Not the foggiest. Star Wars and that virginity thing. Yep. It got me through a lot of tough years. Star Wars is why I'm an artist and designer. Well, see, there you go. I mean, without Star Wars, this wouldn't be happening. Thank you, Star Wars. Thank you, George Lucas. Yeah, that's how close. That's how close my fistful of lead stuff is. And I've got the card decks right there too, so I am ready to rock and roll. Paul Becca says, I saw Star Wars at a drive-in theater. I did too, in the back of, I think it was a 57 Dodge pickup. My mom had an old 57 Dodge pickup that was ostensibly blue. It was blue at one point in time. Had a lot of rust and primer on it. On the side was the painted a can of Dr. Pepper, but it was called Dr. Wooter. Don't know. One of the crazy ass cars trucks that my mom owned through the years.
I'm not going to act like I have any idea what the hell you're talking about.
1954 Dodge pickup, man. Gotta love it. But did you buy Apple stock? Unfortunately, well, I did have Apple stock for a while, but I was broke and destitute, so I sold it, and I sold it at the wrong damn time. Because if I had sold it at the right time, I'd have a hell of a lot more money than I do now.
Yeah, but if you had.
Chuck said, I watched all 10 Solo Don't Count just last week again. So Chuck doesn't like Solo. You know what? We're going to have a show, maybe even tomorrow, Are you off tomorrow also, McMurray?
I am not, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, if I think about it and I feel like just rambling by myself for however long it's going to be, I might do a Star Wars show tomorrow night. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, and that virginity thing again.
People are still making fun of you about that?
Solo fucking rules. I like Solo. Okay, we'll get into that at a later time, guys. We're gonna push on as to why we like the things we like. So obviously, Star Wars is a big deal for me, to the point where this is what I bought for my birthday money from my brother's mother-in-law. Yes, my brother's mother-in-law buys me birthday presents. She got me a $50 gift card to the local game store in Springfield. So I got another box of these dudes for my Tantive 4 scenario, and I picked this up specifically for the Tantive 4 scenario because you got to have R2D2 and C3PO.
That's an escape pod off of the Tantive 4, isn't it?
What's that?
That's an escape pod off of the
Yeah, that's the escape pod from Tantive 4. So okay. I'm going to figure out a way to get that into the design. Well, while we were there, my wife, being the sweet, loving woman she is,
yeah, the best woman on earth,
bought me this son of a bitch. Guys, this thing's gargantuan.
Yeah, that thing makes a Space Marine Land Raider look like a smart car.
Yeah, it is large and in charge, boys. That's obviously a Star Wars Rebel Trooper there, and that's how big the son of a bitch is. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm going to take my time, make it look good. Hopefully it works well. Baron says, and there's a big Star Wars game coming up Saturday. Yes, there is. I will be there. Napoleon is a big deal to me, and people look at me funny. You know what? I personally don't like Napoleonics, and there's a story behind why I don't that I've told before, but I'll readdress here shortly. John says my wife would ask me for $100 and buy me some shoes. Huh? Not bad. With pumps. Nice. Chuck says, John, same. I'd only get flip-flops. Those are expensive damn flip-flops, dude. $100 for flip-flops.
Saturday gets like 50 pair of them.
Oh yeah, or 50 pair of them. Yeah.
Or
is there called in the Hispanic culture, chanclas.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think you probably picked that up living in Lee Summit, didn't you?
What's that?
You probably picked up that bit of Spanish when you lived in Lee Summit, didn't you?
Oh yeah, Lee Summit, right. Okay. Lily White Lee Summit is where I picked that up.
Just making sure.
No, San Antonio. You have to say it like that, or War Mud will get all bent out of shape because you got to say Spanish words and with the Spanish flair.
What miniatures did you order?
He says, I just ordered my anti-vaxxer warband and SWAT team for Fistful of Lead. I've got some great ideas in my head.
Enjoy wargaming is what that tells me.
There you go, buddy. There you go.
Or at least I would assume that's where he's been doing that in Black Ops.
Yeah. So, other stuff that I really like. Y'all know that I love I love Cold War, specifically mid-'80s Cold War. Big reason behind that is my dad was in the Texas National Guard basically for the first 20 years of my life. and was with the 49th Armored Division. So, I would hear, about, when he would go off to summer camp for 2 weeks and come back and talk about how, the artillery, he saw the artillery blow the hell out of the side of a building, that type of thing.
You guys might not know this, but the 34th Infantry Division is the Texas National Guard division that fought in Operation Hazar in southern Italy.
That'd be the 36th Infantry Division. 34th is Minnesota and Iowa.
I'm just giving you trouble. It was also Operation Dragoon and in southern France, not southern Italy. But that's not the point.
Yes.
Actually, that is the point. Anyway. All right, let's see here.
So, but I enjoy that time frame. Pretty much the reason I like that time frame is because that, in my opinion, that was the time when the two superpowers, of course, being, the United States and the Soviet Union, were pretty much on par with equipment. You had the early M1s coming on. Please do not hit my hand holding my drink, you fiend. Ah, damn cat. Dude, stop it. You're going to knock my drink over and it's going to go everywhere and I'm going to be pissed at you. Come on, man. So you had the M1s coming online. The M60 A3s were still a big thing. The M3, M2 Bradleys were coming on. Go get. Yeah. And you still had the T-72s with T-80s coming online. So at that point in time, in my opinion, you had the most parity between the two superpowers with their equipment. Also, that was the height of when the A-10 was around. So and the A-10 is the best airplane to ever fly, in my opinion. So Becca says SWAT are from the assault group and the anti-vaxxers are from the Pendragon's 28 millimeter range, specifically the American survivalists, so they look the part. Nice. John says, I collect miniatures, war games, coins, and genealogy in that order, but play PC games. Humankind. Woohoo! Very nice. My ex-mother-in-law was huge into genealogy. I've looked at it some. I've got a family member at some level that's been digging pretty hard. And I have found out that there were my mom's dad's lineage comes from 3 brothers that came over from Wales. Anybody with the last name Word is related to those 3 brothers in some fashion. So I thought that was interesting. And then John says, actually, I'm thinking if World War II happened, if World War II happened, we would be on par with the Soviet, or World War III happened, we'd be on par with the Soviets, but our Air Force would wipe the Air Force, not even use toilet paper. Nice. I would have to, until the flanker came online hardcore and the Sukhoi Su-27. No, that is the Fulcrum. Yeah, the Su-27 Fulcrum. There's the MiG-20. Anyway, until their newer aircraft came online, I would have to agree with you. So, but other, of course, then I also like World War II naval combat. So.
I'm just sitting here looking at the stacks of random shit that are behind me and realizing this is going to be a long episode.
Well, let's go ahead and dive into your psyche here. What What does Lake Tanganyika bring to the table for you?
Currently, tiny or small amounts of pasta. So it's just let me grab the boats. Well, no, I'm not messing with that. They're all the way across the room. I don't have anywhere to set them. Here are 5 civilian boats that I have for that campaign. You see those? Yeah. Next to 28 millimeter stuff, and then some random stompy robots and whatnot, because Jay Wiley's the devil. He's not. Please don't take that personally. Basically, the Lake Tanganyika, and honestly, World War I in general are kind of the golden age for just simplicity in terms of I'm going to put boats on the table. We're going to shoot guns at each other, and that's as complicated as it's going to get.
Yeah.
You know, like we're not going to aircraft carriers aren't a thing. Hell, in Lake Tanganyika in East Africa, airplanes were pretty much not a thing. Because as soon as airplanes got to East Africa, most easily notable in the hunt for the Königsberg, they flew planes down there, but given that they were made of balsa wood and canvas, the glue that held them together just started coming apart because it was so damn hot and humid.
Yeah. So
for a while there, planes weren't even a thing. Eventually on Lake Tanganyika, the Belgians brought in 3 shore A-27s, but that doesn't really quite count. But, and I mean, combine that with the fact that the indomitable David Manley has written an outstanding set of rules called Steamer Wars that is specifically geared towards actions on the lake in 1914, early 1915, which is outstanding. It's simple. It's fast to play. The book is like $8 or something, and it comes with a full campaign to play the entire campaign on the lakes, which is awesome. Not only that, but one of the most delightful things about hobbying it is you don't need many boats. The boats are usually small, even if you play it in, a comparatively large naval wargaming scale, like 1/600, which is what I played in. Which is why I'm going to go get the boats. Hang on a minute. God damn it. I have a problem. Okay. Oh, here we go. The issue is I actually sat down and stood up and tried to paint most of my living room, so everything is just impossible to get around right now. But well, we'll leave these guys out here. We'll move some of this other stuff.
Well, while you're doing your thing here, John says my great grandfather went to the gold rush and came back to be postmaster of a little town in Indiana. My father had his rifle, and I could not take it because my wife will have no guns in the house. Well, that sucks. Ever tried to pick up a unit of Ford F-150s with a set of tweezers? Oof. Jay Wiley says, I'm not the devil, but we do have a deal.
That's good.
And Chuck asks, alligators?
Yeah, alligators and crocodiles weren't a super issue on Lake Tanganyika because everybody around there was kind of used to dealing with them. But so what we've got is, pull that out. Here we've got the main German forces on the lake. Hedwig von Wissmann and Kingani, right? So these are small. Let me get them up here. Oh, that's a beautiful picture. But you can see there's a couple guns on each of them. This one's got one on the stern and one on the bow. A couple on the bow here. There we go. They're just for the most part, almost entirely converted passenger ships. This is the biggest boat on the lake that the Germans shipped from Dar es Salaam, and I think 5,500 crates.
Good Lord. Now, what scale are you dealing with there? 1/300? 1/600?
Graf von Gutzen, 1/300. So those are the same scale. This thing is truly mammoth. But yeah, it's the Graf von Gutzen. Again, you can see it's not a warship.
No.
At all. But it is
looks like a tramp freighter.
Yeah. Yes. And then here is just a Kriegsfish cutter that I painted up to use in this campaign. It looks cool. It's a little out of scale. It's a little big, and it's a little later, so I don't use it too much. Here we've got the 2 boats that the British sent, the Royal Navy sent over to Lake Tanganyika under the command of Geoffrey Spicer Simpson, who is by all means a nut. But to quote the First Lord of the Admiralty at that time, it is the duty of the Royal Navy to fight or to bring battle or whatever to the enemies of the Empire anywhere there is space to float a ship. So here we are. So they move these goofs overland, which they look tiny, especially when compared to that big moker.
Yeah.
But each of them had a 3-pounder in the bow and a Lewis gun in the stern. And by defeating the enemy in detail, they took first the Kingani, which they renamed the Fifi, and then they took the Hedwig von Wissmann and eventually knocked out that great big Graf von Gutzen. In addition, there were a number of Belgian and other boats on the lake. Here's an armed barge that's got 2 big 3-inch guns in it. That's the other thing. A 3-inch gun is about the biggest gun you're going to run into in this campaign, which is pretty slick. And then there's I have a couple of these paddle steamers and a couple of these other little fellas like that as well. Just it's an easy game to play. The stuff's quick to paint. It's easy to paint. You're not worried about it. The models don't cost a lot. Honestly, the biggest frustration is just waiting for the stuff to get to you, but that's not even too bad and not too terribly difficult. The terrain is super simple. I have a photo backdrop from like when you were doing, school pictures in elementary school. That's blue. That works really well. It's like a weird semi-tie-dyed thing. Here's some terrain. So you've got a dock, some various little houses that are thatched, crane dockyard equipment that slides in real easy, and then a little church sort of thing. So that's, again, and that all paints up super quick. It is dirt cheap.
Yeah.
I think the most I paid for any of these boats is the big one, which is Graf von Gutzen, that huge guy, and it was like £2.40 maybe, something like that.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Another little native African village. And then I've got some shore guns that are pretty fun to play with as well, that are also, again, super duper cheap because why not? Some shore guns, and then most of you guys could probably see the aircraft that were sitting down here. There are some armored cars for these guys too. There they are. They are 2mm. They are teeny tiny, teeny weeny tiny. But yes, those just count as, those are just different ways to represent machine gun defenses at ports.
Represent.
Yeah, exactly. So no, that's what's up with that. So long as we're on the topic for weird, kind of obscure World War I naval, though, these are in the same box. So I'm going to pull these out as I'm putting the Tanganyika stuff away.
Okay, real quickly.
Yeah.
We got Chris Long, A, Walkabout Games. Hello, how's it going, A? It's a sweet ships.
Yeah, man.
John Longshore says, it looks funny when the Americans built a very impressive fleet on Lake Erie in 1813.
Hell yeah. The U.S. and the British built first rates on Lake Erie.
Chris Long also says, love the armored car. I'm sure we're going to hear all about that, too.
The Lancaster. That's pretty friggin' weird story behind that one, too. We're going to get to that in just a minute here.
He says, John Longshore says, hope the ships don't park too close to the dock. That armored car would smush them to splinters and nails.
Unfortunately, yeah, kind of. Yeah, that's what happens when your fleet has to be transported overland by, Not much, to be honest with you. But these are fun. These are the ships that were present for the Battle of Coronel, which was the German East Pacific Squadron versus the Royal Navy's Expeditionary Force to take. Let me divide them up by who's who. I painted the decks different colors so you could tell, but they're all pre-dreadnoughts and armored and protected cruisers and stuff like that. This is a converted merchant ship, the Otranto. This is a cool, really, really old pre-dreadnought for the Royal Navy, HMS Canopus. But so that's what we're looking at here, again, while we're on the topic of weird World War I type stuff. And then this also has most of the ships that are required to fight out the battle at the Falklands, which immediately followed, which is where Speer, who was in charge of this East Pacific Squadron, decided to go raid the coaling station and radio station in the Falklands in 1915. That didn't turn out too well for him. But anyways, so that was just another weird what that's in this same box. So I figured I'd pull that out real fast. Again, just because if you're going to play true, just epic gunnery duel type naval actions, where all you're interested in is cool ships with big guns shooting at one another, World War I is truly the place to do it. Jutland is truly the big, lot of guns, nothing but guns, and we're just seeing who can gun better than the other guys.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, you're not worried about radar. You're not worried about aircraft at all. All you're worried about is I've got more guns than you, or I've got bigger guns than you, and I can gun better than you. Thus, that determines a winner.
Right.
Yeah, and then there's some aircraft. They're not short 827s, but guess what? They're close enough. They're just random 2mm biplanes from Irregular. They painted up, put on bases, and they fly around the table for fantastic games on Lake Tanganyika and have lots and lots of fun. If you guys want to see pictures of all this stuff, if you go over to the War Room Discord and McMurray fans, I've got a lot of pictures from playing that scale and playing Steamer Wars with my buddy Lewis at the local game store here. What was the question about this guy?
Oh, he's just that, it looks good.
Yeah, so weird McMurray shit. We're playing, or I'm putting together forces for a what if Zimmerman telegram scenario, right? So the Zimmerman telegram was sent by the German Foreign Minister Zimmerman to the Mexican government in January of 1917, basically saying, hey, we know the U.S. are currently in Mexico. We get that you guys probably don't like that. If you really, really, really don't like that and you want to do something about that and maybe take back, Texas and whatnot, because you guys just had that like 70 years ago, maybe we can work together and figure this thing out and get you guys back Texas. You guys attack the U.S. There you go. The U.S. was already occupying parts of northern Mexico after pursuing Pancho Villa south over the border. It's a pretty easy way to imagine something happening. Realistically, the Mexican government was never going to do anything without the backing of the ABC powers, given that they were the real superpowers in South Central America at the time. But here we go. So I painted up a bunch. Old Glory has a Pancho Villa line, which is perfect because, again, those that were in Mexico and would have been fighting out the Zimmerman telegram had it happen. So I've got a bunch of 10th U.S. Cavalry, so those are Buffalo soldiers, painted up to represent the Americans. I need to base them. Shut up, I know. I hate basing, but guess what? Their boots are painted.
Hey, there you go.
So there are just 3 of those guys. There's 30 of them, as well as 30 Mexican federal troops that I also use for Gaming the Wild Bunch, because that's one of the best movies ever made.
Right.
But, yeah, so those are cool because, some of them don't have shoes. As you can see, they got just their Pant legs rolled up. Why is that not focusing? Hello.
There you go.
Hello. Well, whatever. So you got those guys. You're right, John. These aren't Model Ts. I couldn't find a good 3D printable Model T that I liked. So I printed out some Japanese Kuragane armored cars.
Good enough.
Because they look ancient as shit. Because, well, let's be honest, Japanese automobile technology in 1930 was about where the rest of the world was in 1920. So here we go. But yeah, Jay Wiley is exactly right. I had these figures already for the Wild Bunch, and we were at the World War I Museum in Kansas City on the Wiley Outstanding Everything weekend, and there was a panel or two about the Zimmerman telegram, and it was just one of those, that would be cool as shit. So Here we are. That ties into these armored cars because you've got a little British Lancaster that's on loan to the U.S. from the British because the U.S. is about to enter World War I, so the British are trying to entice them into that. So the U.S. has an armored car. The Mexican Federales or Resistance or whatever you want to call them have these two civilian cars that they've obviously converted in the style of what they've seen machine guns mounted to, airplanes. The U.S. did have a couple Curtiss Jennies in Mexico at the time. They've seen how, machine guns operate on airplanes. They say, okay, we're going to put a machine gun on the hood of our car, just like those airplanes that the U.S. have. There we go. That's how we came up with this because A, pintle mounted stuff wasn't super duper thing, and B, it's kind of a giant pain in the dick to model. It's just going to break off all the time. Boom, here we go. To mind of a Mexican Federale in 1911 or 1917. I've got a monoplane here that will represent the Mexican flying forces, as well as a Curtiss Jenny that I talked about just a minute ago that is not put together that will represent the U.S. flying forces. Those, I'm sure, are just going to be, ground figures just because they're cool and they look fun and they will be fun to fight around and over on the tabletop. We've got some command figures as well. Okay, these aren't done. I figured I'd spend a little more time on the command figures. I blitzed through each of those 30-man packs in a night each. So I figured I'd spend some more time on the command figures. These are the Mexican command figures. So you've got obviously a general. I think I'm actually going to paint him up in gray or something so he looks Germanic for World War I.
Right.
I've got another one, but his base didn't fit on the washer, so I need to chop the base down. I might just paint this guy up like one of the Federales you saw. This dude is obviously supposed to be Pancho Villa. I'm going to paint him up like something I don't know. And then this dude, I was thinking I also might just paint this guy up like a Stoßtruppen officer. Just because that makes sense that would be who the Imperial Germans would send. And then here we've got the American officers. We've got one mounted. One, this is obviously John Pershing. Two guys that are dismounted. That guy's got a pipe. He's my young Dougie Mack. And then we've got, obviously, William Randolph Hearst here with his notebook and stuff. I don't know what the hell he's going to do. He's pretty pointless, like most reporters everywhere. But so, again, I just need to paint those up, paint up this armor. And I basically got kind of what I need. I already have what I need to play. But whether I'm going to play a big multiplayer, 6 or 8 people, playing like Fistful of Lead, or if I want to play a game between 2 people of bigger battles, that's all easy to do when you've got 30 figures that each have, 4 to 6, NCO or something models each.
Right.
One thing that I do have in this box as well that I haven't primed yet is some Gothic horror. There's a Jack the Ripper model. And then I've got a good number of, civilians for that period, as well as coppers. And then a good number, I think I've got 2 different sets of these incredibly recognizable gentlemen, which is hard to see because they're not primed, but Sherlock Holmes and Watson. I think I got 2 different sets of Holmes and Watson. Yeah, because there's the other one. that's a little more recognizable as your classic Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. But then also to represent the forces of entropy and everything else, a number of just kind of London Victorian street toughs. Again, those might be ones that I paint up or I prime up and paint here coming up very shortly into the future. Because again, that's, I think the total number of models that I've got for that period / setting is maybe 25, something like that, which makes it an eminently playable period. You know what I mean?
Right.
When you could do that, when you really want to have painted in a matter of a weekend or two, that helps.
Sure.
We're going to move on to the next box of figures that I've got sitting here.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Outside of just obscure historical moments that you like to game,
Yes.
which is phenomenal. I love it. Do you like fantasy or sci-fi stuff at all? And do you get into it?
I don't really get into it. I have some fantasy stuff and some sci-fi stuff. Actually, that's the box that I've got right now. I've got some. I painted them up as desert troopers because snow troopers are boring as shit.
Right, because
some Legion models. So I've got. I think I did 7 of each of those, mainly because they build them out like squads of Space Marines. So there were some models I just didn't give a shit about and didn't want to paint, and then I got some stormtroopers as well. And then I've got some. Usually, when I do paint up stuff, it's not like traditional fantasy stuff, right? So I don't have like elves and shit like that. I've got stuff like this. That's like a goblin guy riding a big old troll. This is not wanting to focus. That's really pissing me off. So there's like a goblin guy riding a troll, and then a bunch of little smaller gobos to go along with that. There's one riding a wolf just because why not? Again, they all need to be based. I know. Shut up. And then some, again, just kind of goblin adventurer looking guys. There's a little guy in some armor and he's got an axe that's really out of focus. I don't know where focus is. There it is. And then again, just some little stuff like that just seems fun to paint, fun to do. There is one more guy. I need to get paint on him, but a goblin riding an alligator thing. This fist over here is going to have a set of reins that go up through his mouth, so it looks like he's pulling that alligator.
Big-ass lizard is what you got there.
Yeah. So again,
that's a ball. That's a big-ass lizard.
Yeah, it's a big-ass lizard. But yeah, so when I do paint fantasy stuff, like I said, it's not usually traditional fantasy type stuff.
It's like your dwarves and your elves and the.
Yeah, I just don't really give a shit about that. So
hey, 90, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's the kind of odd stuff that I find. More sci-fi.
Was that? Hold on one second. Was that goblin riding a troll? Was that a lead figure?
Yes, it is. This thing's heavy as shit.
I was about to say that thing that could be a murder weapon.
Yeah, you could definitely just smoke the bejesus out of that stuff. I do have some other stuff to use for like galactic heroes. I have no idea where I got these little gray aliens, but I've got 8 of these guys that I painted up. They got little guns and shit in their hands.
Nice.
Again, no idea where I got those. I think I was going to play a like alien incursion on Earth thing at one point in time.
Yeah.
Some fantastic dissatisfied customers to fight them.
There you go.
There's like 12 of these guys, 16 of these guys. Some of Paul's
brethren.
No, some of Paul's favorite guys in their Hawaiian plate carriers and everything, having some fun.
So do you ever find a miniature and say, dude, that's the perfect thing for X. Now I want to game X.
Yeah, it's really irritating. Yeah. Yeah. World War I. So I have a thing apparently with World War I era stuff this year, and I have an issue with East Africa, because I have a problem. My name is McMurray, and I have a problem with World War I East African gaming. So not only do I have that crap in 1/600, and then I decided I needed to do weird World War I in 28 millimeter in Mexico. Because when everybody thinks of World War I, they're like, yeah, we're going to play that World War I in Mexico thing. Well, this is a pretty good approximation of the traction engine that was used to haul those two boats you saw earlier. Ooh, that's nasty. I need to clean that up. And it's the bottom of the tank, so it's as clean as it needs to be. Good approximation. It's actually a little scaled down. It's really closer to like a 12 millimeter scale because this thing's freaking huge. But good approximation of this traction engine that was used to haul those two boats, Mimi and Tutu, for the Royal Navy up to Lake Tanganyika. So then I decided, well, okay, I obviously need to game that. I tried to game it in 28 millimeter, but Old Glory was out of their molds had blown out for all of their traction engines and stuff like that, which made me really sad. So then I took those miniatures in 28 that I had, and I painted them up like Victorian airship crew because that makes infinite sense.
Yeah.
But then what I did was I, fired up the ye old 3D printer and printed off this guy, printed off a smaller tractor. That's actually a World War II era tractor, but it looks weird and old enough that it's not too bad. Got myself a Maxim on a cavalry mount from right just after the turn of the century. But hey, it's colonial warfare in East Africa, so that's being hauled along by this tractor. We've got a Minerva armored car that again looks suitably colonial for World War I. And then 15 or so British 15 millimeter to play with. I think there's actually 20 of them. I've got some British native loyalists here. Those are already painted. There's 7, 8, 9 of those guys. Some German Stoßtruppen. So some German foreign auxiliaries. They're German-born foreign auxiliaries, so they're white dudes, which is kind of boring. I need to find some Ascaris. As well as then there's some great big British like Zeppelin gun-looking things, right? Because those Maxims are friggin' huge. So those will be cool to play around with. I got a bunch of, again, Germans that are unpainted as well. These I should paint up. Actually, maybe if we get bored later tonight, I'll paint these up. I know Paulie was wanting me to paint these guys up, and I wound up painting those Zimmerman Telegram guys a couple weekends ago instead. So let's put these out here, and maybe if we get bored here a little later, we'll paint these up. There's some cool, again, kind of leader figures there. We got the German dude with his pickle alba, and then a little Imperial German dude with the flat cap or the peaked cap and a saber.
Yeah. And
then on the British side, we've got some suitably British-looking gentlemen standing there with the Webley. Another guy with a Webley just there, just, being British. Being a Brit.
Yeah.
And then we've got another Stoßtruppen officer. But let's get these guys out here.
Got some comments here.
Awesome.
John says, I can't really imagine what the Germans could possibly do to assist the Mexicans other than deliver their well wishes by submarine.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair point. And I think the Mexicans were well aware of this.
Yes, they were. And again, that's why they weren't going to do anything without Argentina, Brazil, and Chile doing anything alongside. They were pretty frozen. That being said, Argentina, Brazil, and Chile had some of the most sizable dreadnought fleets in the world.
Yeah.
Before World War I, before the British, at the advent of World War I, kind of seized everything in British shipyards and said, yeah, no, this is ours now.
Right.
We're passing the 6 millimeter, like, rank and flank stuff, like Lord of the Rings / Game of Thrones / what have you. There aren't a whole lot of those there are a whole lot of those painted, but we're not going to get into that tonight. God damn, we could just do a series of here's random period from McMurray's house.
Right. Jay Wiley says, Daddy got some non-Legion Star Wars stuff that will blow your mind if you want them.
I got some good stuff that's non-Legion Star Wars as well, but send it over, Jay. I'll paint them up. I'm painting up some secret non-Legion Star Wars stuff right now, anyways.
John says, I think it's funny that aliens use guns when psionics would be good since they're 1,000 years ahead of us.
Well, some aliens suck.
World armies of 1,000 AD versus world armies of 2,000 AD. A Roman legion would be the equivalent to a modern division in size.
So,
and then Jay says, who needs a topic? Just put the mic on McMurray and let him go.
Like I said, this might, maybe if Chris wants to, this could become a thing, just exploring random collections with McMurray, because there are a lot of them. So I store most of my figures. You aren't going to be able to see this, but in the U.S. here, we've got a craft store called Michael's that sells these plastic containers that are about 3 inches tall, and they're 12 inches by 12 inches on the inside, right? So I put a magnet sheet in them. Most of my miniatures are either on washers or flat steel bases. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on my lap right now. And there's probably another 24 scattered around. I'm trying to get to the bottom of the pile next to me, and the issue is that the shit's piling up so much on my lap that I can't really do that. So we're going to find a place to set these real quick, and we're going to keep going on this delightful little journey of exploration that you all have unwittingly signed up for, idiots. Quick water break here.
Chris Long says, did you see that Joe Galloway passed away?
I did see that. Yeah. That is a real bummer to say.
Yeah. So.
All right. So, this is a fun one. This is kind of cool. Well, we'll get back to that because none of these are painted, but this is a good one. Here is my box of World War II. Nominally 1/2400 naval. So I've got an entire painted Regia Marina fleet that would rival the size of the actual Regia Marina.
Well, you got one difference there.
These are all floating still.
Yeah, the water line isn't above the superstructure.
Yeah, I've got a whole bunch of Panzer. Yeah, no shit. Panzer Schiff miniatures that I painted up that are really fun. They're really simple. They're easy to paint up. I didn't do the whole, these are all German World War II. I didn't want people's videos that I had them in to get flagged, so I didn't do the full aircraft recognition on them.
Yeah.
But there is a bunch of those.
You could have gone ahead and at least put the white circle on there.
I didn't want to tempt the YouTube censor's fate.
Fair enough.
If I had my own YouTube channel that I might get videos pulled down off of, that'd be one thing, but I don't. It'd be on somebody else's channel, and I didn't want to do that. Here's a bunch of stuff for Rommel that is in the early stages of construction. Rommel's a cool game because everything is on bases. A base represents a company, or in the case of artillery stuff like these Katyushas, a battery, like an artillery battalion. I'm sorry, not a battery, a group of batteries. But that's all cool stuff. So there were some T-34s, some Katyushas. Here's some King Tigers, Panthers, and then here's some Panzer 38Ts because we like variety here at the Not Jay show. Let's see. So those are fun. If we get down to it, I'll start pulling out some of the finished Rommel stuff because that's always really interesting to see.
I think what we're going to do about once a month, we're going to do a show of what the fuck is in the box tonight.
Yeah, what's in the box next to McMurray right now?
Yeah.
Some other random stuff. Oh, here's some cool stuff. This is fun. So here are forces from the Imaginations campaign that we were going to play over on the War Room for a while before 15 or like 12 millimeter ACW came and ruined everything.
Yeah.
But so those are
French units.
These are forces. Hell no.
Well, they got the French flag.
Yeah, I hadn't. So all of them need regimental flags painted on them. But the idea is you've got these 30 mil bases with 5 figures each. There's 5 of those in each regiment, including a command stand. And you've got nominally 10 to 12 regiments or something like that. These are examples from 2 of my regiments of infantry. I didn't want to do just all ACW. I thought that would be a little boring. So I did some ACW and then some other stuff. These are actually Alamo Defenders.
There you go.
Because I knew Chris would go nuts for those, which is why I grabbed those. There's another stand of those Alamo Defenders.
And those are what? 10, 12?
10 millimeter, yeah.
There you go.
These are actually French Foreign Legion figures. You see that with their white kepis and tan uniforms, right?
Yeah. Very nice.
They're just cool miniatures. I kind of took the opportunity to find fun miniatures and, just paint them up. I've got some, or here's some traditional ACW. You can see I accidentally put those on 1-inch bases, and then I had to glue the 1-inch base to a 30 mil base. Oopsies.
And you gotta, base them.
Shut up. Yes, and then we've got artillery as well. Yeah, I know they need to be based. Shut up. So we've got so the cool thing about that is that I've got some heavy the idea is it's nominally ACW-ish time frame. So we've got some modern rifled guns, some larger guns, and then some little fellas as well. Yeah, Rommel's a really cool set of rules by Sam Mustafa. Great rules. They're really fun. They kind of, if you enjoy board war games, then you'll slide right into Rommel really easily. A lot of the same. There's a lot of crossovers and basic concepts. And so that's really easy, really simple, really fun. One of the things in that Imaginations campaign is that you could upgrade some units if you downgraded other units. So I do have some units of pikes. So I have 2 regiments of pikes. The cavalry is downstairs, unfortunately, or else I'd have the cavalry for you as well. I think I'm looking right here at 5 regiments of infantry, 2 regiments of pikes, 3 batteries of artillery, and I think I have 3 regiments of cavalry down in L basement. Also in this box, I've got 15 millimeter World War II, early war French, because Todd over at Wardrobe plays World War II, and I will be playing the pint-sized campaign, Taking the Jean-Blanc Gap by Two Fat Lardies, and we're playing that in 15 millimeter. So I've got the full. In this box, I've got everything you need for that campaign, including a 75 millimeter gun and a 25 millimeter anti-tank gun.
Nice.
Yeah, they need to be based, whatever. But so I've got the French forces are in here for that. At some point in time, probably relatively soon, honestly, you'll get to see that start rolling out over on Wardrobe Plays World War II. That gets me down to another box of 6 millimeter micro armor. This is a box that is a full German early war Panzer battalion, painted up in that early war two-tone camo. So we've got Panzer IIIs. Each platoon has an attached, or each company has an attached platoon of Panzer IIs, which you can see here. Then 3 companies of Panzer IIIs. The heavy company has 3 platoons of Panzer IVs. And then up here you've got, obviously platoon command, and command tanks. Each battalion has its own command. I'm sorry. God damn, each company has its own command. That's battalion command. My brain is not working. You've got a detachment of early Stugs. And then recon of Panzer 1s and 2s. As well, on the far side of that, there is
hold on 1 second.
Nice armored infantry battalion.
Chuck says, wow, you got everything. Wait, any Thai elephants?
You know what, Charles? Just for you, I'm going to look for Thai elephants now. And I'm going to play a Trong Sisters campaign, which is early/medieval era Vietnamese kind of folk heroes. We're the Trong Sisters.
There you go.
Why the hell do I know that? Jesus, what has gone wrong in my life that I know who the Trong sisters are?
And then John Longshore says, Blucher is a
Yeah.
really good set of Napoleonic rules, perfect for 2 to 6 millimeter.
That is absolutely correct. I actually have some stuff I intend to play.
Take care, Jay. We will see you on Saturday, my friend.
Bye, Jay. Sorry I'm gonna miss you Saturday.
It's gonna be a blast.
It's gonna be super awesome. But love seeing you. Do you have a BSing with the Baron next week, or is that 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, Jay, when's our next BSing with the Baron? Crickets.
I've got some late war U.S. paratroopers, also in 15 mil. There's
at the McMurray Hacienda, 3rd floor, Thai, Indian, African lingerie.
Yeah, there you go. Oh God. And then on the bottom here, I've got more 15 millimeter World War II single based. These are Germans. So I've got kind of your bog standard Germans in field gray doing their thing, as well as a whole bunch of Fallschirmjäger in tan. Just doing all the cool stuff. I'm kind of trying to see if there's any models that poke out. We got guys with Panzerknackers, so you can see that in his hand.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. There's a lot of these guys. I think there's at least 1 or 2 painted platoons in here, if not 3. And
there you go, McMurray.
This Tuesday, we're every 2 weeks now. Hell yes. All
guys.
Right. Every single one of you, I will be very, very, very disappointed in if I don't see you watching and commenting on the BSing with the Baron. I believe I'm actually off this Tuesday, so I'll be able to listen in a whole lot more attentively.
There you go. Jay Wiley and his buddy Steve put on a bi-weekly show now, every 2 weeks.
It's a great show.
And it's so far the 2 shows that have been out are really good. My favorite part is the mailbag.
Yeah, reading emails sent by
actual customers and their idiotic, ignorant,
they're 110% not made up complaints.
Asinine emails that
let's give the average customer a break. They're buying products, they're trying to do the right thing. How about that?
They're idiots.
Well, they're trying to do the right thing.
For somebody that has worked a vast majority of his life in the retail customer service line, people are idiots.
I absolutely understand. But again, the fact of the matter is they're trying to do the right thing. They're buying the right products. They're just a little confused on what the hell they're supposed to be doing with them. Oh, here's some of my favorites. Okay. All right. So here's some of my personal favorites. Oh, I'm sad Jay's leaving because he would love these. I've got some butt-naked Celts, right?
There you go.
And German/Viking berserkers, just in case Lassie Nielsen is watching this show. Lassie, you're a dick. These are Viking berserkers, and the elite for my Viking berserkers are these gentlemen, who I'm really hoping the hue on their metallics is going to come through. These gentlemen are the Purple Helmet Warriors, with white crests flowing out of the purple helmets.
You're a disturbed individual. You know this, right?
So anyways, they were specifically painted to take part in a game of Fistful of Lead that I put on at the local club called Snakes on a Plane, right? Which is where the local so you have a colony of, when Roman legionnaires retired or were discharged, they were usually given public land to live and farm. And so you have these fantastic gentlemen here who are named Snakes for all the obvious reasons. You have snakes on the plain, Plain.
Right.
Snakes on the plain that are disturbing the local retired, discharged Romans. And this is their fantastic leader, Boner, named for the skull and obvious method of pointing. Not named by me, believe it or not, but as you guys can see, that model is actually highlighted and shit. Wow. Wow.
What?
Wow.
Get out of town.
Here is the leader, one of the leaders of the Romans. This is Spartacus.
Nice.
Again, also you can see there's some weird highlighting on the skin and stuff because I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. That's actually one of the very few single models Old Glory sells. It's a Spartacus model for their Spartacus Slave Rebellion range. I really like that figure. So that's what that is. In case anybody was just dying to know what that was. But yeah, so that's Spartacus, the Roman commander who's tied all these snakes on his plane. We do have some of the Romans painted, not many. I had just enough to kind of play with. Here is a Roman general in case he gets called out, as well as some of my retired veterans with some of their kit. Like always, anytime you retire from any military, stuff kind of goes with you. So these gentlemen, like I said, were tired of all these snakes on their plane. I know they're unbased. We played with them unbased. I took shit about it then. I don't need you guys giving me shit about it now.
Ain't no thing, brother.
But yeah, so we've got some other just kind of general Romans. These are actually artillerists, but they painted up really nicely, so I like to play with them. These are Warlord. I think they're War Games Factory, which is now Warlord. Auxiliaries, which I painted up like Caesarian Legionnaires. Pretty happy with how they came out. They just take a while, which isn't the worst thing, but they do take a while. And then also in this case, I've got just oodles and oodles of gladiators. Lots and lots and lots of them of all different sizes and types and everything. So we got some cool shields there. We got some big guys. We've got some little fellas. Where are my little fellas? Here's a little fella. Right? We got big fellas, little fellas. All kinds of stuff. We've got Mamillos, Thracians. We've got some Rotariuses here. All kinds of cool stuff. Some that are, again, that's another little fellow, but he's got a pretty cool pose or sculpt to him. I can't see what you're pulling out now and where you're pulling from. I'm pulling from the depths of weirdness right now, Mr. Longshore, but I'll try and work on making it so you can see what's going on. These are figures, again, Roman civilians that I painted for a Gangs of Rome type campaign. So these guys are the sailors. You can see they've got the chain. This guy's got a tiller handle that he's wielding as an offensive weapon. Same with this guy with a little flagpole type dealie. And then we've got some builders. So this guy's just got a rod that he's running around with. He looks like he's been working all day. Got a guy running around with a mallet. And then this guy is leader of the builders. He found a helmet and a sword. But again, just little one-off weird stuff that I can find that I can paint that's fun. It doesn't take too long, usually a night. What I need to do, as always, is spend a solid week. I need to take a week off work and just do nothing but base figures. But that's not this week, so we'll have to figure that one out. Maybe one of these days I'll have a weekend over here where all we do is sit around and base the hundreds and hundreds of painted figures that I have that are unbased, like these poor schlubs.
You know the easiest way to do that, right?
Yes, I do. Is using the Ready Mix basing system by Luke Fellows over at Geek Gaming Scenics, formerly Luke's APS kit YouTuber. I don't know, for whatever reason, I've just got this weird mental block when it comes to putting glue on a base and then dipping said glue-covered base into into stuff. I don't know why. I really, honest to God, couldn't tell you. It makes no sense. There's no reason I should be deathly afraid of it or allergic to it or whatever the hell I am. But I am. So that's just where we're at the current moment.
John says, do samurai or Scottish tartans. Give yourself a challenge.
Eat a dick, John. I hate painting samurai. I'm just kidding. Don't eat a dick, John. John, you're a delightful person. I hate painting samurai. Will not do it again. These are the World War I British that I was originally going to use as East Africans. They can still be used for an East African campaign. I didn't paint them up too wildly. They are, as you can see, based.
Wait a second. That guy kneeling.
Yeah.
Is he got... Okay, those are binoculars.
Yeah,
I thought he was drinking from a flask.
Oh, hell no. But now I'm going to have to find somebody who's drinking from a flask. But there are some guys there. Fun fact about these, they're actually, I use them also, they double as Victorian airship crew. So for each guy that I've got, running around with a rifle, I've got a figure that corresponds with a pistol.
Right.
But yeah, those are based, as you can see. They aren't crazy based, but they are based. There is texture and a dry brush on those bases. Their opponents, we've got German Say Battalion. They are not based yet, but as you can see, they are suitably evil looking in their white clothing and black shoes, looking like Imperial Stormtroopers. Again, goofy looking dude with a pickle alba rocking out as their leader. Oh, here's the leader of the Brits. The Germans do not have the same conversion factor of 1-to-1 like my British do, but there is the ostensibly, whenever you have British colonial something, there's got to be just a weird dude who's in charge. That's this guy.
Yeah.
That's this guy. It's almost a rule. You just have to have a weird dude in charge. Here are my 2 British native auxiliaries for that East African campaign. They should look familiar to most of you. But yeah, there you go. You're right. I can use those on Tatooine, John, and they will be used on Tatooine because you just said it, my friend. But then I decided I was going to paint some of the Brits a little bit different. So I have some that I'm painting real tan, like Sudan kind of stuff. Less of that bright color. Kind of like when you're watching a movie, and they go to Mexico and everything's got that weird sepia filter on it. Yeah, that kind of stuff. So I've got Brits in Sudan, and they've got just a different tint to them. Right. I haven't finished them yet, though. Also in this box, there's some more unpainted Say Battalion. I think I only have 16 figures of Sea Battalion painted. And then I got some World War II Royal Naval Landing Party that are partially painted because for whatever reason, sometimes I just get to something, I'll put a base coat on them and then go, damn, I don't want to paint these anymore. Speaking of which, this box is full of a whole bunch of Winter Americans that look like that, as well as my German Ardennes forces for fighting the Battle of the Bulge. Right, so those are all painted. I know they need to be based. Here's a command figure. He's got his fancy pants fur coat on. There's those guys. Those guys are pretty cool. They've all got the standard Feldgrau, as well as whitewashed helmets, stuff like that. One of the odd kind of interesting parts about this collection or period or whatever is that, as you guys know, the Battle of the Bulge featured a huge armored presence. So one of the, German sections or forces or whatever that I've got is a 8 or 10 dismounted panzer crew, right? So their panzers have been knocked out. They're fighting on foot, running around, doing whatever. We've played some fun games with them as well, where they're running around the Ardennes in the snow looking for spare parts or trying to get back to wherever they were going. Here is one of the armored units from that.
There you go. John Longshore's got a great name for that British leader.
Lord Hecklepin Eleanor Rigby Smythe. Hell yes, John. Outstanding. I do have a bunch of Germans I still need to paint, like a Sturm platoon. So a bunch of guys with STG 44s. Again, I did my standard and I tried to paint their boots on them so that I wouldn't have to worry about coming back and getting pissed off painting boots on them. But yeah, so those guys I still need to paint. That'll be pretty fun. This is actually a Hermann Goering figure It's not really a Hungarian figure because he's running and that's not a thing. But I need him up for my outstanding campaign.
He'd be, if that was Herman Goering, he'd be running from the 36th Infantry Division.
I mean, he'd be running towards a bakery or wherever he was running. But
Right.
that does remind me, need to go into this box are these figures, which you guys are probably sick to death of seeing. But they are also incredibly late war German figures. Here's the dude from Indiana Jones, the big bad guy from Last Crusade or Raiders of the Lost Ark, with the cool. Oh, that's a Hobbit. That's not the right figure. With a cool, what is it called? Clothes hanger. That's the word I was looking for.
Oh yeah.
And he's got the cool clothes hanger. Couple more just random upper echelon bad guy Germans. There's one little Austrian corporal over here. There he is that we're looking for. Those guys have all been eaten by dinosaurs in various games. That's fun. Eat Hitler is a great rule set, along with Caveman by I don't remember who. That being said, you can get them on War Games Vault for next to nothing. They're fun games to play. They're really easy, simple, fun games to play. Caveman's fun. Who the hell's calling me? I don't even know where my phone is for that matter, but somebody's not getting an answer. But yeah, so those are cool, fun games to play. Here's a fun one. Figures from my Fistful of Snowballs game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really fun game. Played that a couple times locally here, a bunch of times locally. Then Jay came out with Snow Brawl, and I felt like an unoriginal asshole. Got a bunch of little kids painted up for that conflict as well. So that kind of sums up the stuff that's easily accessible that I feel like explaining within arm's reach. How about that? There is an ungodly number of things that I did not talk about there. But again, for that simple category of stuff that is easily accessible within reach that I have done, there we go. There's a couple dinosaurs over here, some Victorian airships. But yeah, that's all within arm's reach of the desk. So we're not even getting into most stuff. Hey, what up? It's Jeffy. Hi, guys. Jeff, did you just try calling me?
No.
So for the last hour.
Why am I confused? I thought you all started at 9:30 your time.
No, 8:30.
Oh.
9:30 your time. That's okay, because for the last hour, we've been listening to McMurray go ham on all of his weird shit.
I haven't even gone ham on it. I've been like drastically glossing over stuff.
Right. So, but now I'm going to take the focus away from you for a little bit, McMurray.
Perfectly fine, because I need to go get some more water.
All right. And we're going to cuss and discuss with Mr. Jeff, Hex to Hex. And we know that you are unabashedly, unapologetically, unequivocally a historical guy. And that's okay. We like that. Specifically World War II and Civil War.
Okay, there you
go. Is there a particular... Well, we'll start with the second, kind of what I would suspect is your second love of being World War II.
Right.
What World War II battle draws you the most, and why?
I'd be lying if I didn't say the Bulge, even though East Front seems to be more my thing nowadays. Because
Jeff, we're talking about World War II battles, not your favorite bars.
Oh. my favorite nightclub is Walmart. So, I mean, while right now I'd rather play anything East Front because I think it's so vast. I mean, the Bulge, well, and it's kind of a flip between the Bulge and Arnhem. I mean, they just both pulled me along. Arnhem, I just think because even though it was just an epic failure, I loved the plan. I loved trying to play any game to keep attempting different strategies to try to win that damn thing and get to Arnhem, no matter what game I'm playing. How to break out with 30 core, how to secure those bridges quick. Hopefully the landings go right. The bulge. Who is not intrigued with the last what they call the last offensive for them?
The last major offensive. How about that?
So yeah, I would say between those two.
You guys got here late. We're about to close it down. I've been
we're
talking
not.
for an hour about dumb shit.
I didn't see you were still alive. I thought we were off. Oh boy, better get my hair done.
Yeah, Todd skipped hair and makeup this morning, guys. Sorry.
But right now, give me anything 1941 on the East Front. Right now.
Gross.
All right, sorry about that, guys. I was receiving my instructions from the wife as she is going to bed.
Night.
See ya.
Jeff says goodnight. Todd says see ya. She responds in kind, boys. So what about the East Front?
Well, I mean, come on. Okay, so when can we go in history where the operational planning or the strategic planning, however you want to call it, covered a 1,600-mile front that everything had to be working in unison?
Napoleon invading Russia in 1814.
Wrong, because he never split and covered the whole country.
I know, I'm kidding.
Okay.
But he did make it to Moscow.
Yes, he did.
Zing. Gotcha, Manstein. Suck it. Sorry. Sorry, world.
I just think you could. I think that the East Front, you can take that any game you want to make. You can take that. Well, you can probably do it to a lot of things, I'm sure, but you can just any number of vast scenarios from operational all the way down to tactical. It just seems like it's unlimited.
All right. So it's just the vastness of what you're dealing with there.
I think that was the true identification. That in North Africa would be the true depictions of maneuver warfare when it came to that, I would think, in World War II.
All right. Cool. So before we go down your other rabbit hole, Todd.
Just real quick, do we have to go down Jeff's rabbit hole?
No, it's not Jeff's rabbit hole. It's the rabbit hole Jeff goes down.
I left my rabbit hole up in Gettysburg today.
Oh, you went to Gettysburg?
I did.
Okay. Well, that's where we were eventually heading, and excuse me. So, but let's just real quickly, Todd.
Yeah.
What? Obviously, with the name of Wardrobe Plays World War II. World War II is your time frame of choice, I would say, correct?
Well, now I'm suddenly a big GCACW fan. No, yes, World War II is my primary. Yes, so
what about World War II draws you to that as a time frame?
Well, okay, I think it's because I was immersed with it as a kid, right? With the movies of the 70s and 80s and my grandpa and the kind of being around the people that are around it and his historical stuff. I think that kind of immersed me in it. I remember looking at the wargaming books of Grant and I really wish I would have. These are at the library, but man, I wish I would have got original copies of them because I would check those books out all the time from Grant and Featherstone, just read them and see those black and white pictures of Napoleonics and World War II, and or whatever. And I'd like, man, wonder what that's like. I never even attempted to find where those pieces were or how to do that. I didn't think it was something I could achieve. Anyway, my point is, didn't really have a preference. When I look at those games, I thought any of them looked cool. But then, I don't know, just as I got older and I've played these games and I've tried to play ACW or Napoleon or others, I'm just not that interested in them, really, generally speaking. Now, this game I played on Sunday was great, but I think it's just that's what just captures me. And also, it's kind of an interesting period. I mean, it's kind of that transition period just before all the technology started coming in, right? So you're still a little behind on the technology. Is not fantastic, though it got better, but there's no guided stuff relatively, And radios were good, but I don't know. There's just a little bit of limitations, but there was a lot of maneuver. So it was kind of an interesting period as far as like weapon systems and things like that. And then it's just a vast story from like really 10 years, like 35 to 45. So.
All right, and you are definitely more a land battle kind of guy than you are a naval or air campaign kind of guy.
Right. Yeah, which is weird because as a kid, I was totally into Navy and Air. I just thought that stuff was the coolest stuff. And then at some point, I just transitioned to, and that was not gaming. That was just interest in, like, I'd draw ships and planes, and land was of no interest to me. And now it's just the opposite. Though I do have a World War II naval game. I enjoy Naval Thunder, and I haven't really ever enjoyed an air game. But I probably just need to play like Check Your Six or something with a group of people that know the rules, and I'd probably have fun, but I wouldn't invest in it. But yeah, definitely land, and definitely just kind of unfortunately, it's a good old standard Western Front stuff. Mediterranean to Western Front seems to be my jam primarily. And I think because I understand.
We'll play this with World War II fighters.
Todd loves Africa.
Yeah. And so, like Africa, I've had a hard time getting into. East Front, I've got a couple games I enjoy, but they're just because I like the systems. But I just have a hard time There's so much information on the East Front. I just have a hard time following it. And the names are harder, right? The Russian towns. And I can't even pronounce the English towns, so let alone the French towns or whatever. So, but right now I'm definitely on a West Front, Normandy, kind of that, again, traditional, all the standard battles. Sorry, everybody. Market Garden and Normandy.
Well, I mean, and you have a personal connection there with your grandfather with the 12th AD.
Not neither one of those battles, but yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, just being in Western Europe and France and Germany.
Yeah. Yeah.
So back to you, Jeff. I'm going to guess that when it comes to the Civil War, you're either going to be Gettysburg or something happening in the Shenandoah Valley as your go-to. That's what draws you in because, well, that's where you are, right?
Yeah, I mean, gaming, the battles in the valley was never a thing until I found GBACW from GMT.
Right.
There were games out there. I have the old SPIs, like I have Cedar Mount. Well, no, Cedar Mountain's not a good one. There's like a couple from SPI, like there's Kernstown. They were the first Great Battles game. Stonewall is there, but there weren't like a ton that I knew of. Apparently, there are a lot more out there. Gettysburg for sure. I'm starting to get a little taste of the West. Like Chickamauga is a good one. I'd like to see some. Well, eventually I'll get to some brigade level games of the Vicksburg that get paid out there. But I'm starting to have this thing with there are so many battles that could be scaled down and played at a regiment level for the Civil War. I was looking at a sign today, as a matter of fact, up at Gettysburg, one of the regiment monuments. I was just looking at the battles they participated in, and there were probably like 40 battles that they fought in. And I was reading some of the names. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know there was a battle. Oh, there's another one. I didn't know there were battles there. And I'm like, oh, man, where are these at? So now I want to dig a little bit and find out. But, yeah, go-tos would definitely be Gettysburg. The Wilderness would be another one for me. Chancellorsville would be another one for me. Antietam, Fredericksburg. Anything Virginia, the Valley, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So what about, other than it's probably the best known battle of the American Civil War, probably the most studied of the American Civil War, but what about is personally to you about Gettysburg that just you find so intriguing?
Okay, well, first, so I grew up in Northern Virginia, and the majority of soldiers in the Army of Northern Virginia were Virginians. Okay.
Yeah.
Gettysburg, for this side of the country, that's the tipping point. All right. That's probably when the Army of Northern Virginia, from mid to late, had their most strong morale, large strength force that they ever had during the war. And they had the golden opportunity. And I think I remember we were talking about this today, me and my buddy. The most amazing thing to me about Gettysburg is the Confederates had the force to go up there and win. To me, it should have been a no-brainer. Some of the generals en route to go up there performed it. I mean, Dick Ewell is a perfect one. His operations up to the day of the battle and up to July 1st in Gettysburg were impeccable. They were phenomenal what he was doing, fighting through Winchester and up through the valley and going up and driving on up to Harrisburg and all that. And then stupidness sets in on July 1st. all the dissension and the disagreements, my philosophy is whether Lee was right or not, Lee was in charge. You trusted him. You lived by his orders through all these years of war. And all of a sudden, it's probably the most major battle on the East Coast. You're going to question the guy instead of executing what he wanted done when he wanted it done. Because I got news for you. I go up there twice a year and I read a lot of stuff about Gettysburg. Gettysburg should not have ended the way Gettysburg did. The Civil War should have taken a whole different path because there should have been a Confederate victory at Gettysburg. Now, just shows the Union resolve. They were given the opportunity by mistakes that were made by the Confederate generals. It gave the Union Army of the Potomac, it gave them the opportunity to slam that door closed, and they did it. And, kudos to them.
Hold on.
Here's a
second.
question for you, Jeff. Oh, sorry. Jeff, do you think that the Civil War would have militarily been drastically different had the Confederates won Gettysburg, or do you think that the Civil War would have been drastically different in terms of the election of 1864 had the Confederates won Gettysburg?
I think it could have done both.
You think that the Confederates could have overwhelmed the Union's just obnoxious military superiority?
I think they had there was enough time. Well, first off, you were never going to get troops back that fast from the West. Okay. And the troops that were around D.C., those were not well-trained troops. I think that if they would have whooped, which if you think about it, for a good part of it, they actually did. If they would have whooped or just crushed a lot of the Union Corps right there at Gettysburg, then I think that they could have turned southeast and been in Baltimore or maybe even D.C. or got between what was going to be the scattered Union Army, and I think they could have forced that what we call it nowadays, suing for peace or whatever.
Right.
And then here comes, and I'm going to hate that I'm going to say this. If that happens, and then the Confederacy stomps the Union at Gettysburg, I think McClellan becomes president.
Well, that's my point. Do you think that was my point? Do you think that militarily, because I would thoroughly argue all day up and down that the Confederates are never going to militarily win the Civil War, period. End of story. It was a logistical and industrial impossibility.
Right. Oh, yeah, I agree.
I think what you'd be looking at there is exactly what you just said. All of a sudden, 1864, Lincoln does not win re-election. And you've got, because the Democratic Party was running in 1864 on a "we need to stop this war" ticket. And I'd absolutely agree with you that Lincoln's Lincoln won his reelection, or I'm sorry, Meade won Lincoln's reelection in at least large part, not necessarily entirely, but in large part at Gettysburg, especially by then providing him an opportunity for something like the Gettysburg Address. I don't know if the Confederacy would have been able to take DC. I understand that, it's relatively poorly defended. So is Petersburg. But guess what? Petersburg held out forever just because it had been turned into a fortress. I can't imagine DC being any different, but
well, I mean, you're talking. I think the window was like really, really small in July of 1863. I think if the Confederates win at Gettysburg and the government doesn't fold through the rest
of the
Union
government,
the Union, yeah, federal.
You think the Union government would have folded from a loss at Gettysburg, despite the fact that Vicksburg was a rather inevitable victory for them at the exact same time?
Yeah, I think Vicksburg was more major than Gettysburg myself.
So. Well, that's my point. Is that
that's what I'm saying.
Gettysburg,
it not. It didn't. Obviously, we'll never know. But let's just assume that Lee goes up there and he just blows the Union Army of the Potomac out of the water completely, just destroys it. I don't care what that force is in D.C. It's not going to stop. Can you imagine the morale of the Army of Northern Virginia?
Well, that's my point. The Army of the Potomac went down to, again, my point is that you've got these. First off, I'd argue that the Confederacy doesn't have the logistics train, doesn't have the logistical infrastructure to support a siege in the North, which you can't really argue. That's why the Confederates only got as far as they got in Pennsylvania, is because they were running out of supplies. Jeb Stuart had to go catch supplies. Jeb Stuart found a shitload of supplies, did a great job capturing a bunch of supplies. He captured 100 and something wagons immediately prior to Gettysburg.
Well, yeah, but then
the issue is he captured all those wagons and then couldn't do what, the rest of his job was. Right. He was out doing his job, but at the same time, Lee had given him the job that, you're supposed to be raiding and capturing supplies, but then also you're supposed to be performing rapid reconnaissance. Well, that doesn't really fucking work. But my point is that without that ability, there's no way that the Army of Northern Virginia survives in Pennsylvania, much less around D.C., to lay siege to anything, and I don't think the Union would give them an up and up fight to just take DC.
Yeah, well, I don't think there would have been much of a siege in DC. I really don't. I think it would have just been a battle and it was done. But Lee himself said I've read, if you read Lee's Lieutenants, it's probably one of the best ones. Lee said he could not stay stationary in northern terrain. They had to keep moving.
That's my point. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. They did the economic backing of it was never going to happen. They never had. That's what I'm saying. It would have been a really, really short window in July of 1863 for the war to have ended by Union capitulation by the people or the government or whatever. Very short window. Would that have happened? No, I don't think it was ever going to happen. But if it would, that would have been the only window that I could possibly have seen that happening in.
So, I got you. So I've got a question for you. Is it, I don't want to say safe to say, but can it be said with some accuracy that the Union had the better military, but the South had the better leadership, militarily speaking? I'm not talking about government. I'm talking about the Southern generals were better than their counterparts in the Union.
I think that they just I think okay, well, first off, let's just take the foot soldier. Let's say that the ability of the Confederate foot soldier in a 1 to 10 rating, let's say they were a 9. Every one of them was a 9 on a scale of 1 to 10. And every Union soldier, cavalry, all of them, they were 4s. Every damn one of them was 4s. but then you stuck repeaters, breech loaders. You stuck better artillery in their hands, more of it. All right. When it comes to the leaders, I think just that it just took those leaders in the North. I mean, let's take Lincoln and Grant. How long did it take for him to realize Grant was the bomb? You know, they had him. Just a lot of them they were getting their toes were getting stepped on. People were getting their toes stepped on. I mean, what's the stories I hear? Who was it that? So there was somebody that they couldn't stand Ulysses Grant, and that's what kept him hogtied for a long time.
I think that was Robert E. Lee couldn't stand Ulysses S. Grant. Oh, I'm sorry.
There was somebody too in Lincoln's staff, a military officer.
I know, I'm giving you trouble.
That said that, and Lincoln's response was, no, we can't let him go. He's a fighter. And it took, 4 years for them to decide to get him back there? Now, granted, maybe too was a case of let's leave him out west till he puts everything in motion. He doesn't need to be out there anymore. But I think once he snatched Vicksburg, if you think about it, I think Vicksburg it was kind of minimal loss for the Union armies out there because he sieged it literally. But I mean, I just think it took the Union Army a lot longer to find those. Well, plus they kept restructuring nonstop. Excuse me. Sheridan's a perfect example. A lot of people didn't like Sheridan, but Grant knew that Sheridan and he told freaking I think it was Burnside or somebody. He told him, he said, look, there's one thing about Phil Sheridan. He will go do what he says he's going to do. So he turns him loose in around Richmond, Petersburg when they start out. He turned Sheridan loose to go deal with Confederate cavalry. And Sheridan did his job. So Sheridan did his job so well, what happens next? They send him out to the valley with his own command. And he whoops up on Jubal Early for the last year of the war. So and he did a great job. And of course, there wasn't much left of the Confederacy by that time. And, I mean, I say I just don't. The thing was McMurray said it, the economic thing, build stuff and great stuff. I just think they were slower to find those leaders and put those leaders in the right places. We discussed this today. Can you name, were there any units, major parent formations at Gettysburg that never fought on the battlefield, that were never engaged at Gettysburg?
I honestly don't know because I don't know enough about Gettysburg. All I know is it's a town in Pennsylvania, and there was a lot of fighting between Union and Confederate, and Hood's brigade was there doing something to somebody.
They always talk about the best corps in the Union Army. Is funny to them because they were the ones they were like the firemen. They always responded, but you almost never hear a whole lot about their fighting. But they were still the best and largest corps for most of the 5 or 6 years of war. The 6th Corps under Sedgwick, they arrived on the field. Like, they marched their butts off, but you're not going to find any reports of them competing or fighting in that engagement, any kind of major part of that. But and then, your people talk about Lincoln being pissed off at me because he didn't pursue Lee when he had him on the run and just decimated. And, of course, Meade, hey, we're whooped. We're beat up pretty bad, too. But, shit, Meade had his biggest corps was literally untouched sitting on the field and didn't do anything with it.
I've got a question here from John. Says, if Grant died at Shiloh, would the North still have won?
Different story.
What's that?
That's a whole different story there.
So, well, I'm just going to take a stab, a completely uneducated stab here. And it might have extended the war, made it more than the 4.5, however many years it was. But I think as previously stated, no matter who commanded the South was never going to win the war.
Yep.
Because of the logistics
Sorry.
They might have, they could have, I mean, I don't even think they could have fought to a draw, because for the Union, it was destroy the South's capability to wage war, or allow them to continue to exist as, the Confederacy, and that just wasn't going to happen. The Union was not going to say, okay, we'll just let you be. They were going to instigate the war to its bitter end, I think. It might have taken longer, in, again, my completely uneducated estimation, if you didn't have if the Union didn't find their generals and get them in place, like Grant, like Sheridan, but it would eventually, just out of sheer attrition, because there was nothing that was going to, you might have been able to replace the men that were lost, but you weren't going to be able to replace the equipment.
The Confederacy couldn't even replace the men that were lost.
No, you're right. Well, here's a question, McMurray, for you.
Yeah.
Do you think?
The answer is 3 months.
Do you?
The answer is 3 months. It took Springfield Armory 3 months to make more rifles than the Confederacy produced in 4 years.
Do you think Lincoln? Do you think that Lincoln, at any point before 1863, do you think that he knew that there's no way economically that the Confederacy could outlast the Union?
Yes.
Then there's
I think that was a relatively well-known phenomena from the start of the war.
Right.
Because, again, the Confederacy, realistically, who was gonna play Captain Save-A-Ho for the Confederacy?
Yeah.
Nobody. Especially once the British were like, "No, dog, we got lots of cotton. Thanks, though. Bye."
John Longsword's got a valid point.
Iron Brigade, they didn't need to win; they just needed to not lose. Well, that's the point. Is that there wasn't an opportunity to not lose. There wasn't a. It's not a. There wasn't a nope. I'm going to dive out of this thing. Opportunity for the South. That's the issue. If the South had an escape point, that would be one thing, but they didn't. They were just. It was one of those. We're going to stick around until it's done with. And if I think there's a valid option there that if there was right here we have this opportunity to sue for peace and be done with it, that'd be great. But ideologically, again, especially once if both sides decided they were going to stay in a war, there's no end. There's no option there other than the U.S.
Lee himself knew there was going to be no Confederate victory, but maybe this was one of those. Well, maybe we can get them to just leave us alone type wars.
Yeah. So any war ultimately comes down to success is measured by your ability to erode the enemy's capability to fight and will to fight. Right. One of those, the Confederacy had no chance to ever diminish significantly the capability to fight. That wasn't a thing. There's always more dudes. There's always more guns. There's always more equipment.
I think that's an amazing feat, too, that they shut the Confederacy off.
But this other guy, but it's a multiplying thing, right? It's not an addition thing. It's a multiplying thing. Because if one of those goes to zero, you can have as much the other one as you want to. It doesn't matter. If you don't have the means to fight, you have the will to fight, you're pissing into the wind. If you have the means to fight, you don't have the will to fight, you're pissing into the wind. And that's what everybody's looking at here is, Todd, are you drinking alcohol? I don't know. Or is that apple juice? You're muted, I think. That or you're just being a dick and talking real quiet.
So, question then, being someone who has studied more of World War II than the Civil War, would you say that what the Confederacy, to have been able to win, the Confederacy needed to do what the Japanese attempted to do in World War II, and that's make a quick, swift blow that was so devastating that you, again, what McMurray was saying, you knock the will to fight out.
They had one chance, in my opinion. All right. If you ask me, actually, both sides had the initial chance to do this in 1861. I think the Confederates had the opportunity after the first Bull Run with pursuit. No matter how badly beaten up they were, I think that would have been that could have been their quick solution. And I think that McClellan on the peninsula, had he not been a dumbass and believed that the Confederates matched him number for number, I really think he could have just pounded the shit out of the troops on the peninsula while Beauregard or Johnson was in charge before Lee come along. So, I think the war could have been over in less than 6 months. Hell, they went into the Civil War thing in 90 days.
Yeah, 90-day enlistment, baby. Hell, pretty much on both sides.
Huh? Yeah.
I mean, and that'd be my goofy ass point is that if there was ever an opportunity for the Confederates to win, it's right after Irwin McDowell steps on his own dick.
Dick, yeah. And McClellan allows him to do it without helping him.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that would be my point, is that's when the Confederacy could have just outright won.
Who had the motivation in 1861?
That's the thing. The Confederacy did.
Yeah.
Right.
That was it. You're right. It needed to be swift. And, you think about that with the Japanese. The problem is the Japanese allowed us to, they didn't get rid of it all when they hit us.
Problem is they attacked Pearl Harbor on a Sunday. Yeah. Which apparently they never heard of fucking church or shore leave. Second off, they didn't even detail anyone to attack repair docks because that's not going to be needed after you bomb a whole fleet. And third off, nobody bothered to be like, hey, man, you guys see those aircraft carriers here recently? Yeah. No? Shit. Well, whatever. Let's do it anyways.
John, your comment about Sherman up there. So
is absolutely correct.
If, let's say, Grant does get killed at Shiloh.
Well, if Grant gets killed at Shiloh, then
Sherman never becomes what Sherman becomes.
Correct. But if Grant gets killed at Shiloh, then Marty McFly zooms back with the train and hits Jefferson Davis in the face with the train. And then all of a sudden, Lee gets dysentery and poops himself to death. And then Stonewall Jackson isn't running around to get shot by his own sentries. But he thinks Mary Todd is super hot. And so he wants to get in Mary Todd's pants and winds up running for president, killing Abraham Lincoln in trial by combat, becoming the president of the United States, and realizing that, oh, man, now we don't have to even worry about it.
Right.
And so that's my issue.
Well, Lee left Virginia twice with the Army of Northern Virginia to get the freaking war out of Virginia so that it could regrow. It's, the Shenandoah Valley, my God.
Pro tip, it didn't work very well.
Interstate or Route 11 and Interstate 81, you got plaques all over the damn place about some of the shit that within a mile of my house or my apartment, I'll guarantee there's 100 plaques about little different skirmishes that were fought and some that lasted 15, 20 minutes, but it was just constant up here.
I'm still sad you guys didn't like my Stonewall Jackson and Mary Todd romance story.
I can just picture Mary Todd Lincoln
and
I said Florida State Seminole vesicles, and you didn't laugh.
Hey, we had a girl up there today when there were 3 of them riding bicycles, 2 girls and a guy. And I think the one girl and guy were a husband and wife, and she had to be a history major or something. And we were under the Robert E. Lee statue where I sent y'all that picture. And she was talking, as we were walking back to the truck, she was talking about a story that I had never heard about. They boo-booed when they made a statue and they put Jackson sitting on Traveler in this statue.
Doug, what the hell is the difference between Traveler and any other horse other than Traveler with
I
gray?
didn't hear all of her story, but we heard that part distinctly. So hell, we talked about that for 10 minutes.
John, that story was amazing. You stop it.
That one.
So, getting back to the actual topic, the reason you like to game specifically Gettysburg during the American Civil War is there's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah, there is.
And I think John Langshore says Traveler had an obvious mole on his left cheek.
No, there you go. It got lonely without Mrs. Lee on campaign, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, and I think that's probably what draws us to a lot, each of us individually, the what ifs of combat, the what ifs of battle.
Well, come on. Gettysburg was if you think about it, well, no, there's no thinking about it. Okay, the Antietam campaign was never a venture into Union territory. Maryland was neutral. The only time a major force went was Gettysburg.
Right.
So I mean, there's your story right there. It's like invading another country. The Confederacy stepped on Union territory. Now it is a fight for our lands.
Holy shit! You just used "our" referring to yourself as a Yankee.
Well, I am a Northern Virginian.
I'm proud of you.
Peter Bergs. I like the story about the mule that performed well, so they made him a brevet horse.
Goddamn right. Exactly.
Oh, damn, Peter. That was funny. Anyway, yeah, I think
feed and everything.
I think that's why I really what one of the things that drew me to World War II naval was the what if. What if Halsey's Iowa, Missouri, New Jersey, Wisconsin actually met up with the Musashi and the Yamato?
Better yet, what if the freaking infantry officers, the land force officers, could agree with something with the naval officers?
Well,
you mean what if Dougie Mack and Nimitz could put their differences aside?
Yeah.
That's kind of like that one time we played a what if, where Yasser Arafat and Itzhak Rabin ran a sandwich shop in Queens. Yeah.
Odd.
Those are about as likely.
Yeah. But I think that's, what if, what if Hitler decided to use the Me-262 as a fighter bomber and not a interceptor?
Chuck Yeager still would have shot him down. What up?
There is that. There is that. But, there's these what ifs.
What if Hitler had two balls?
Well, there you go.
What if Hitler wasn't a British spy?
Oh my God! What video was that?
Tick.
Jeff was scrolling through his YouTube yesterday while we were hanging out and found Hitler was a British spy. I'm going right back to what if Hitler had two balls, because there's a song that goes along with that one. So suck it. It's a good song too.
Come on, you could go back through history and you could probably take every conquering nation, and you can find the one boo-boo that just unwound it all.
Yeah.
Everybody's got one somewhere. We happen to unfortunately have quite a few of them since we threw the British out of here 3 times.
Peter says Army Navy fighting applied to both sides, Japan and US. Army Navy fighting applies to every single nation that had an army and a navy.
You got the Italians who just their Air Force and their Navy couldn't get along to the point where they didn't even have a fleet air arm. That's pretty embarrassing. Oops.
Then John says it's hard to say how the Japanese could have improved their 41-42 campaign before Midway torpedoed it. They couldn't do better than A+.
That's not far from wrong. Even on land.
Except for the whole, oh, wait, we didn't get their carriers.
Well, that's the point. Like,
what is the U.S. Navy? What if the U.S. Navy was equipped with torpedoes that worked at the beginning of the conflict?
Pro tip, they were. They just wouldn't use them.
Shh, minor pesky details.
Because everybody needed magnetic detonators. Idiots. Everybody should have just listened to Ernest King the first time he blew his stack.
Uh-huh.
It would have all been better. And then we would have taken over Great Britain after the war. Hated the Brits.
I also heard that the Japanese continued to believe in their fucking super torpedo they had, where our philosophy was the big guns on the decks of Navy ships.
Well, I'm sorry. You're going to have to repeat that because I just read the old Chestnuts comment here. This show has everything. Ty Elvins, naked kilts, Jackson banging Lincoln's old lady, moles on the horses. Now I can sleep in peace.
No wonder Mary Todd went nuts.
I'm about to say, dude, I mean, honestly, is there anything more funny than the Germans believing that the British didn't have radar but were detecting night raids because they ate carrots, which improved your eyesight?
Right.
Which is why people still think that that's a thing today.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we don't have radar or anything. We just eat a lot of carrots. Like, can you imagine being that poor Luftwaffe, 16-year-old NCO that got only fed carrots for like 3 years? Because they're like, no, Heinrich, eventually you're going to be able to see in the dark. I don't think it's working. Shut up, Heinrich. Eat your carrots. Because you know that was the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Here, have some methamphetamine.
Yeah, here, have some Panzer Schokolade. Eat your perverting carrots. Like literally just carrots, cooked carrots, but instead of salt, they're putting meth on it. Yeah. Uh-huh. God, what a time to be alive. The 1940s were a hoot.
John says, here's a topic to think about. What if the Japanese joined the UK and declared a war on Germany? The UK would be released to go to North Africa, and the Japanese could have put their effort into taking all of the Vichy colonies.
And we'd have never entered the war.
But you think that if the Japanese and the British were allied, the British would have allowed the Japanese to attack French colonies? More importantly,
we would have had Vichy. Well, no, yeah, the Germans would. Yeah, I guess we would have.
The fun part is all the doofuses nowadays who are saying that the Japanese surrendered in 1945 because the USSR was coming into the war. What?
Peter says, maybe if Goebbels had choked to death on a worst in 1941, the war would have gone into 46 or 47.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, because Hitler wouldn't have had one of his primary yes men just allowing him to do whatever the hell he wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that in von Manstein's book too.
I still like that book. I don't care what you say. He was
I don't dislike the book. I just think it's a hilarious, it's the epitome of listening to like a 14-year-old high school girl explain why the other girl's a bitch.
Nice.
I never did anything wrong.
One thing that bugs me there, I know several people that are like this, and it irritates me to no end. And McMurray and I are kind of on the same page with this, and we've talked about it. But there are individuals that say that the Soviet Union defeated Germany.
Oh, let's fight.
Yeah. Oh no. I'm I'm with you on this.
Yeah, let's do this. Who wants to fight?
They're saying, they say without the Soviet Union, Germany would have won World War II. What I throw back to them, though, is it is an Allied victory.
Yeah. Well,
without the Soviet Union, would
good question.
Would Britain and the United States have been able to defeat Germany on their own?
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe. Eventually.
Let's picture the Wehrmacht. Let's picture the German army. Let's say the German army establishes their, the AA line, and they own everything in the Caucasus. And let's say Rommel is still sitting in the desert at the end of 43, not gaining, not losing any ground, but he's still sitting there. And the Germans secure the land that deep into Russia. Where does the face of the war go then? Does Germany now have a better percentage of actually winning had that been successful?
No.
Had Russia capitulated or said, okay, you keep that, we'll stay over here.
No.
No more fighting.
What I'm saying is eventually the United States and Britain would have won the war. It probably would take another 4, 5, 6 years to do it. But we would have won the war on the sheer fact that we could just keep throwing shit at them.
I'm telling you, I don't think for 1 second, and I just never have, that the Allied nations, I just don't think that if we don't go into the war in World War II, the Allies don't win.
No, absolutely. Because without the United States supplying everybody with everything, they don't win. Without the tens of thousands of trucks and tens of thousands of Jeeps and the thousands of M4s and the hundreds of thousands of bullets and shoes and bushels of wheat, the Soviets don't do shit.
But I say, if the Soviets are just sitting there without rail cars, without logistical transport, without shoes, without food, what are they going to do? Granted, yeah, they have, 16 million reservists they can call up, but then what the hell are they going to do with them? Just let them sit there and starve like the rest of their population?
Exactly.
Cool story, bro. At the same time,
yeah,
the Germans, cool. They got the Wehrmacht, you're right. They only had, 14 or whatever percent of the Wehrmacht combat divisions deployed to the Western Front in 1944. Granted, fair. Cool. Bring all the rest of those combat divisions over to the Channel. The hell are they going to do? Sit there and stare at the water?
Yeah.
Yep.
Have them do a full-blown Caligula and take out their bayonets and start stabbing the Channel? Cool. Good for them. Completely impotent. It's like Napoleon in 1805. What the hell is he going to do? Sit there and stab the water? Cool. Good for you, buddy. Have fun.
Well, I mean, I like the stuff you read about a lot of the countries when the Germans invaded in Barbarossa in 41, how a lot of the people were Russians, right, in Ukraine and I guess the Baltic states and everything.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank you for liberating us from Russia.
Yeah. It's because they weren't Russians. They've been sitting there getting starved by playing famous from the USSR. Yeah, absolutely. Because inside of the USSR, inside of Russia itself, they completely eliminated the actual productive farm-owning class. So they were all starving. So they're like, well, this is dumb. Well, we got all these people. We can have starve instead. Let's do that. Cool. Fuck them.
John,
Sorry.
John, do you want to go down that road?
Yeah, we're not doing that one. We're going to continue sitting here talking crap on the Russians.
Yeah. Two Vietnams for us now.
Yeah. But so, let's go back to, okay, Russia says, okay, Germany, keep what you got. You want the Ukraine, have the Ukraine. You want the Baltic states, have the Baltic states. You want Poland, have Poland. We're good. You You didn't get to Moscow. You didn't get to Stalingrad. You didn't get to whatever the hell that other Leningrad. Okay, we're good. We got ours. You got yours. We're fine. Well, and Peter says the U.S. supplies to USSR is overestimated. I don't think so. I don't think so because literally,
boy, Peter, we're gonna fight.
Literally, tens of thousands of Jeeps and trucks
More
were sent.
More importantly, less than 10% of the locomotives, the things used to move train cars. We're not even getting into how much rolling stock the U.S. sent over there. Less than 10% of the locomotives in the USSR in 1942 were made in the USSR. The rest were made in the U.S. Again, you know all trains you want to, but guess what? If you can't get it anywhere, and it doesn't matter what anybody says, trucks were a secondary logistical movement towards. You're right, Peter. You're exactly right. But the only reason that the USSR was able to create T-34s
is because they weren't building engines.
Raw materials, petrol, and all the logistical supplies required to get stuff to factories and everything else. And because the USSR didn't have to worry about building trucks, trains, Jeeps, aircraft for a good amount, and because the USSR had everything else. The USSR had intelligence sharing from the U.S., which allowed them to be able to create non-modified T-34s, right? Because you're sitting there, you don't have the T-34M because it's like, oh shit, we just have to do with whatever we can, right? So you're right, the U.S. was not supplying T-34s to the USSR, but the T-34 alone didn't win. The only reason the USSR was able to create the number of T-34s that it needed to, which don't make no bones about it, the T-34 alone, without all of the logistics, would not have won the war. You couldn't drive a T-34 from a factory to a front, period. That wasn't a thing. You needed the rolling stock to get it there, because by the time you put, 1,000 kilometers on that transmission, it was shot to the point where it had to be completely replaced. Because the Russians knew that, once it gets in theater, odds are this thing's going to last about 500 kilometers on the transmission before it gets knocked out. So why do we have to build a transmission that's going to last? Yep. Right? So you're right, Peter. The U.S. was not supplying T-34s, but the U.S. did supply a quarter of the total GDP of the country in Lend-Lease, which a quarter of the U.S. GDP in Lend-Lease is probably right about the entire GDP of the USSR, if not more. Point being, you're right, Peter. They didn't supply T-34s, but a T-34 sitting outside of a factory doesn't do anything. A T-34 in combat does something.
But even more importantly, those T-34s wouldn't have been built, or as many T-34s wouldn't have been built if they had to worry about building the rolling stock, the engines,
that's my point.
The shoes.
So those things, were they Rolls Royce engines? What were they?
What's that? I don't know.
Lawnmower engines by the time the war got there.
Right. And John, I'm not saying that, it's rah, America's perfect. By no means is the United States perfect, or was the United States perfect. We did some horrible, terrible things to many people to end up winning the war. Was it right what we did? No. But it's a thing. And in the long run, it's, again, I go back to if Germany, or if Russia says, okay, Germany, or the Soviet Union says, hey, you got yours, we got ours, we're good. And so Germany decides to, pour all, that was 115 divisions on the East Front. They push that over, into France. Okay, that's all well and good. But now the United States has all, like you said, a quarter of the GDP is now freed back up for our own utilization.
John, you're exactly right. The Soviets did have thousands of light, medium, and heavy tanks. They had T-34s in 1941. They had KV-1s in 1941. What did that get them in Barbarossa? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. They did. They had massive tanks. They had vastly superior tanks to the Germans in 1941. What did that get them? Absolutely nothing.
Pushed back to the outskirts of Moscow.
Their factories did absolutely crank out. By the time the T-34 production ended, 84,000 of them. You are correct. Fact of the matter is, everybody getting after just jerking off the Soviets about how they won the fucking war. It's as easy as looking at Sokolov and Khrushchev both admitting that without U.S. intervention and Lend-Lease, the Soviet Union would have lost the war. That's as far as you need to go. When Nikita Khrushchev says we would have lost without the U.S., all this dumb bickering we're having right now is pointless. when the official the Soviet historian of essentially the 1980s and 90s, again, Boris Sokolov, says the USSR would have fallen without American intervention, all of our dumb, we feel bad about being Americans arguing is pointless. Sorry, it's that easy. It's that easy. The U.S. dollar won World War II.
And John says they stopped the Nazis on all fronts. I don't think the Russians stopped. The Soviets didn't stop the Russians on all fronts. Russia, and I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the landmass. The landmass and the weather. The landmass and the weather of Russia has stopped Napoleon. It stopped the Kaiser. Well, what stopped the Kaiser was, okay, we give up because we're having inside toils. Our leader just and his entire family just got murdered. So, we're going to step back.
John, I appreciate it, but I have a bachelor's and I don't owe any money on it. Sorry, buddy. That was good, though. You're right. I am in my early 30s. That is my generation, but no student debt, and it's a bachelor's. Thank you.
So, but no, and nobody has invaded Hawaii except for Dole, and that's a completely different story. But it's the what ifs that draws us to a lot of the different time frames that we like to game. Because we, just as we're doing right now in discussion, we, as the idiot apes we are, think we can do better than our historical counterparts. I know that if I was in Halsey's place, I could have done it differently. I know that if I was in Montgomery's place, I could have done it differently on Sicily. It's just the way we are, and so we want to play out that capability. The problem is we pushing around our little cardboard counters or our little plastic miniatures or metal miniatures, as the case may be, don't have to suffer the sting of loss. We don't have to suffer the political ramifications. We don't have to deal with a lot of things that those generals and admirals and field marshals had to deal with. So, we think we can do better, but in the long run, could we? I don't know. That's why we play the game. That's why, and we'll never truly know, because any historical game that we play is going to eventually end up having some rule in there that causes us to have to do something a certain way that's going to for lack of a better term, railroad us down a certain path. Because there's no, I mean, except for something like Fistful of Lead, where you're coming up with your own scenario, you're never going to run into a historical game that doesn't somehow want to keep it historical by forcing you to do one thing or the other.
I think this might have been the best interaction chat-wise we've had tonight. I mean, think about it. We just played a war game. We did. We just played a war game.
Yep.
You know,
There's friction
with multiple participants. I
Yeah.
think that's pretty good. I mean, all you guys out there, John and Matt and Peter and all the rest of y'all out there, that's awesome, man. I mean, you can't. You know, it's cool to be able to throw your observation, your opinion, and you know, this is times like this. I wish you guys were on The Voice with us, where we could hear what you all. So, because you can, it's always better when you can feel it from somebody when they're talking about it. You know,
Yeah.
but in text you don't always get the right, you know, relationship.
infliction or passion or whatnot. Just go ahead and looking at some of the comments here. In my experience, it's usually rolling high on a CRT where low is good that stops the Germans. Fair enough. Warmutt's in the house.
Horman.
He celebrated Mama's birthday tonight.
Oh, yes. Happy birthday. In my experience, burning the map board with a lighter stops the Germans.
Birthday time.
Oh, man. Peter says, don't think Hitler would accept any outcome other than a total defeat of Russia.
Accurate.
Um,
And that's the problem.
Well, just not going to go too far down that path, but if it was early enough in the war, would he?
Probably not. I mean, I'd argue that he wouldn't. Just look at how he treated. He wasn't. I'd argue that he was trying to turn Russia into a stateless mass, like you'd turn the rest of Eastern Europe into a stateless mass. And as long as you have a Russian government to stand up for anything, probably not, man. Like, politically, he had to keep Vichy France as a thing because France was one of those nations that you couldn't just eliminate. But he had eliminated every other nation, you know. It's not like there was an independent Polish puppet government.
It don't matter. The simple truth of it is Russia's amount of space allowed for time.
Yeah. Scorched Earth, John? Old Chestnut says, it depends on how much fluid in your Zippo. Very true.
That was
Yeah, and we're all bloody pulps. Agreed. And then he said the Nazis put out peace feelers for the Western Allies in 1944. See, that's the thing, though. I mean, Neville Chamberlain, what was that, 38, 39?
39 and 40.
Yeah. You know, we have peace in our time. And I don't know. It's
I suppose on one side, in his time, right there.
I was going to say, maybe in that hour he said it. That's great. Not for the Poles or whoever.
You know, they agreed on, you know, was it the Ribbentrop Pact? And, you know, at the very moment that was signed, come on, Hitler and Stalin both were nervous messes about, well, when's he actually going to attack us? You know, both of them saw that. That's the way they both felt. So fighting Russia wasn't a question of would it have happened. It was just a question of when it was going to happen. And Hitler took the initiative. It was going to happen one way or another.
Peter Berg says, Liebersheim, living space. He hated the Slavs and based his political philosophy on it.
Yep.
Fair enough. So I'm going to read Chuck here real quick, and then I've got another quick question. Then we do need to wrap it up. Hitler was counting on the British and American USSR alliance breaking down when he was backed into the corner at the end of the war. It was going to be his ticket out. Fair enough. So, sorry. That was from Peter. Chuck says, question for the expert. If Germany told Mussolini to pound sand in North Africa in the Balkans, how many more divisions would they have had? And would not Barbarossa have started sooner?
Hitler had to go to North Africa, dude. He had to go to North. You could not. You were at war with Britain. You could not leave North. Italy was never going to handle Britain once Britain developed down there. Not a chance in hell. So he had to go there because you could not leave the Allies in control of North Africa. Because you got to think that, okay, come on, man. Case Blue got close. All right. If you can't open the back door to that oil, you need to go down and open the front door. So you could not leave the Brits down there to continue to build, and secure the Mediterranean. Hitler had to go because Hitler, come on, man. Who knew Mussolini was never going to be able to handle the Italians weren't going to handle it. He also knew that he needed to have Italy as an ally because of that goddamn boot that led right into Europe from the south. He had to have some, whether they were going to be worth a shit or not in Italy, if the Allies, because you don't think for one second Hitler didn't realize that somewhere in time the Allies are going to come into Italy. He had to know that.
So, from what I've been most recently learning, is that whether Hitler gave two shits about Mussolini and Italy as a nation didn't matter. He had to keep Italy under his control
Mussolini was
because it was just a hop, skip, and a jump, literally, to the Ploesti oil fields from Italy. And so he could not allow the Allies to be in the Mediterranean. I mean, it was bad enough that we were able to fly out of Egypt and other bases in North Africa with the B-24s to go to Ploesti.
Good point, John. Very good point. I always forget about that.
With the Italian Navy or
Yeah.
Rommel?
With the Italian Navy. Yeah, I agree with also about Rommel too. I think it wasn't bad the size of force they put Rommel in charge of in North Africa. I think he could handle something a little bit larger, but I agree with what John's saying. He would have just been he'd have been a dwarf among elves, you know. I mean, I think in the East Front.
So yeah, people talk about how if Germany had just, abandoned Italy, that wasn't going to be able to happen because, like he said, as soon as the United States and Britain and the UK get on to Italian mainland, that's a jump-off point for going into the Balkans. That's a jump-off point to go into southern France. It's a jump-off point to bomb the Ploesti oil fields.
Crimea, same thing.
Yeah. It was just he couldn't allow it to happen, and that's why he poured dozens of divisions into Italy, and that's why he made it absolutely. He did with Italy what the Soviets did with Russia. Just make it a meat grinder. Nobody did well in the Italian campaign. Nobody. And they just kept on throwing division after division after division against the Americans and the Allies. The Australians and the New Zealanders. If Paul was still here, he'd probably back me up on this. The Australians and the New Zealanders just got their ass chewed up like bubble gum and spit out.
Chris Long had said the same thing.
Yeah.
About the Canadians, especially around Monte Cassino.
Yeah. Just it was, if you want to hear just the horror story of the Italian campaign, The Day of Battle by Rick Atkinson.
Anything by Rick Atkinson's good.
Oh man, I finished that up a couple of months ago listening to it, and it was just horrific. It was crazy. So yeah, again, you know, like I said, we've been going 2.5 hours. Haven't heard much from Todd, but thanks for being here, buddy.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And I'm glad McMurray was able to be here tonight. The first hour of seeing all your weird shit was amazing. I loved it.
Again, we can do that whenever you want to. Tell me what you want to see, and then I'll pull it all out, and we'll walk through everything, maybe do some painting on something, because most of this shit has stuff that's unpainted that goes along with it.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we might
and we'll talk
have
about
some
everything.
painting chats. So
I'm switching over to now. These are for Paul. I should have painted for a long time ago. Hey, Otranto. That's what Otranto is the name of the converted merchant ship that was at oh shit. I had a model of the Otranto earlier. It's named after a town in Greece. Shit, what is that? Cornell or Falklands, one of the two.
yeah.
Wow, there we go.
So everybody tonight, thank you so much. I think we had as many as 9 viewers.
Cool.
Thank you very much. Jeff, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Todd, thanks for coming by, buddy.
Yep.
McMurray, of course, it's always a pleasure to have you. And John Longshore and Peter Bergs and Old Chestnut and Chuck and briefly for a little while Chris Long, and an even briefer moment Dave Hall and
Paul and the Baron and everybody, man.
Yeah, so
great audience,
all of y'all, everyone, even Warmut.
Well, even Warmut.
Hi,
even
Brian.
Warmut.
I didn't thank him, but he was on.
I thank you all for spending your evenings with us. It is truly, truly appreciated. Be sure to check out BSing with the Baron next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. He will, if he doesn't post it in the Rockies group, I will. I'm sure it'll be a blast as always. So we've got Peter Berg saying bye. It was fun. Nice talking to smart people.
Where? Oh,
well,
the chat?
We got John here saying drool. Sure. Nice to hear your cough easing up. Thank you. It's better. I still have some pretty unhealthy fits, but that's okay. Chuck, thank you. Good people need to be watched. I appreciate that. Yes, book 2 is done. Book 3 is going to print. And yes, for whatever that is. Again, guys, may or may not do a show tomorrow night. If I do, I'll let you know. If I don't, we'll definitely see you next Wednesday. If anybody has an idea of a show topic, let me know. I'd appreciate it. So, Clark was on earlier, Peter. You missed him. He was being an annoying ass. I was holding my drink, which is now empty. But he kept bumping my hand while I'm holding my drink. So, yeah, he was being a jerk. Love him to death. But, yeah, he's doing great. Thanks for asking. All right, guys. Again, thanks again. We'll see you, if not tomorrow, we'll see you next Wednesday on the flip side.
See ya.